Life Below Zero has been an absolute fan favourite since the very beginning. The cast of the reality show only gets a handful of things to survive in the wild winters of Alaska, but still they make do of those things and try their best to stay alive. If that's not a good idea for a reality show, then we don't know what is. It's the very reason why the cast of the show has quickly become a household name and people want to know more about them and what they're doing now. So let's get into it and find out the inside deets on the cast members of Life Below Zero and where they are now.
It's not very good. Everything tastes better when you're hungry, but not something I'd eat if I had a lot of food.
Glenn was a huge part of the reality show. He was the hunter, and there really was nothing that went down without his participation. People actually thought that he's in for the long run, but as it turns out, we started seeing less and less of him. He was completely cut off from the show. He revealed that the creators didn't want to film with him, and they had some creative differences, which why he had to part ways with Life Below Zero. Glenn did seem a little disappointed because he filmed 85 episodes on the show and he was a very active member of the cast, but after the shooting for Moose Hunt, the creators never really called him back. So much so that they never even gave him a reason to stop working with him like this. Although he isn't on the show anymore, Glenn isn't letting his hunting abilities get rusty. He continues to hunt in his huge property and is building cabins as well. So it seems like he's been doing pretty good, despite leaving the show that probably paid him thousands of dollars. He's currently living in Alaska with his wife and 3 kids.
I had a tremendous amount of surgeries and work done, and I'm in my mid-50s living in a very brutally cold climate. This is hopefully going to keep me limber enough to keep my lifestyle going.
Sue has been the life and blood of the show and has brought a whole lot of charm and experience to it. She's from Illinois and has been married at least thrice. She spent most of her life in Alaska, and because of the show, she's close to being a millionaire. Although Sue and the creators got into a bit of a spat when Sue got severely injured back in 2017, she dragged the production to court because she thought that the stunt scene wasn't necessary, and still the producers made her do it, and it ended up hurting her and injuring her. She hasn't returned to the show since because of this huge controversy. She owns Kavik River Camp in Alaska, and people can book it for hunting, boating and fishing. And with a growing social media following, her camp business is thriving too, and she's in a really good place as of now.
Well, it's gonna rain, you guys. Let's get this up and let's make a place to cover our stuffs.
Chip is also a huge part of the show's cast, and he's been responsible for making the reality show a lot more thrilling and all the funnier. Although he suddenly disappeared from the show and fans were totally puzzled as to what exactly happened to him. As it turns out, he was in jail for 15 months, and the show didn't think it would be good for their reputation for Chip to be associated with the show anymore. Now, he made a claim several years ago that his daughter was assaulted in Alaska by a trespasser, but he couldn't prove his claim and it turned out to be false, and that's why he was convicted of false statements and perjury. Now, Chip is back to living his life to the fullest and has gone back to hunting, but he's not really working on the show anymore.
It's pretty hard to put a value on stuff like this, but you know, this is thousands of dollars worth of lumber. I know that.
Andy is quite popular among the audiences, and he used to earn close to $100,000 a year with the show. But despite such a handsome offer, Andy has left the show mainly because of his injury. His hip injury was causing an infection in the muscle, and proper treatment wasn't available in Alaska, so he rushed to Florida. He had to spend 6 months in recovery, so after this, he couldn't think about going back to the show. As soon as he got back, he wanted to bring order in his life and take care of his dogs. He couldn't think about going back, mainly because he sustained such harsh injuries in the past too, and this time things got a little too serious and he barely survived. Andy is making sure to focus on his health these days, and he hasn't completely given up hunting, but he's also opened a school where he teaches hunting and takes thousands of dollars a week. He also starred in the show Chip and Agnes Hailstone.
Eric and Matt are gone doing their hunting thing. I'm gonna hold up the fort here, just day-to-day chores, taking care of fishing clients and facilitating whatever needs to be done.
Martha had a knack for hunting from the very beginning, but when she met Eric, he encouraged her to take part in the show and the duo became really famous. She was always seen helping her husband and trying to find out ways of survival without food and water. She left the show back in 2016 and has since never spoken openly about it, unlike other cast members who had a lot to say about the producers. There hasn't been an official explanation as to why Martha left the show, but she never really came back. As of now, she's living a happy life with her son, and she's now looking after a business of hunting guides. She hasn't stopped pursuing her passion, but according to some reports, the show became a little too much for them and they were unable to take care of their son, their business, and also couldn't handle being a star on such a hectic show anymore. But now, Martha is really happy with how things are going in her life.
Okay, we gotta start moving before the weather comes towards evening. It's gonna get cold and start getting moist.
Agnes is the wife of Chip Hailstone, and she's also starred in the reality show with her husband. She didn't reveal much about her personal life on the show, and we didn't get to see a lot of her because of her reserved personality. She left the show around the same time when Chip did, because with him being in jail, she had all the responsibility of taking care of her children. She went through a very rough phase, but she believes that if something is hurting you, you should simply stop thinking about it. So she lives a very happy life with her 7 children and her husband near Cobrook River, and she still hasn't given up hunting and fishing.
Yeah, let's put some sheet iron on the cabin. That way the next porcupine that come along can't just eat it up.
Rico is the exciting new addition to the show, and he's been hunting since childhood. He's really entertaining in the recent episodes, and his survival tricks completely dominate everyone else. But at one point, he was a drug addict and was even jailed before. But from this point, he built his life back up and became the person that he's genuinely proud of. He currently is earning thousands of dollars by starring in the show of his dreams, and says that his family has a lot to do with his sharp hunting tactics, as his father taught him all that from childhood. Although Rico doesn't like to talk much about his personal life, according to reports, he has 5 children with Rona Vent.
Not gonna work. This is just too wide.
Kate brought a lot of drama to the reality show until her own life fell apart. She soon revealed that she won't be living with Andy Bassett, her husband, anymore. The reason was that Andy hasn't been very kind to Kate in the relationship, so much so that Kate even accused him of abusing her verbally and damaging her mental health. She's since separated from her husband and has opened up her own business. Kate is now an owner of a dog mushing school which is named Ventures, and it's doing pretty well. Besides, she's living in Canada with her daughter and has given a couple of interviews about her life from time to time. Although she likes to keep her daughter out of the limelight, it's been so many years and still Kate and Andy's daughter hasn't been seen on TV. It's mainly because Kate wants to give her privacy to live her own life. She's really happy with how things are now, and there's little to no chance that she'll think about going back to the show.
On this episode of Life Below Zero,
James is also part of the show, although we never really get to see him. It's because he was like the behind the scenes voice that keeps us hooked to the show. He's been a part of several projects because of his deep voice, but as he never comes in front of the screen, only a handful of people know who he really is. He took a break from the show back in 2017 when he was having a heart transplant, and no one has really heard about him since. Besides, he's also very private about his life and doesn't talk a lot about his family. And there you have it. Now you got to know everything about the cast members of Life Below Zero and where they are now.